Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Pink Cloud Frequency. I am your host, Brianna Wynn, and today I want to talk with you about 6 alcohol truths I wish I had heard sooner. For years, I thought there were only 2 kinds of people who could drink and people whose lives had completely fallen apart because of alcohol. I did not fit into either category. People would describe me as responsible, reliable, and strong willed. They would not point to my relationship with alcohol as a problem. I had a career, I was raising my son, taking care of my responsibilities, trying new things. Everything looked great. And that's what kept me in that indecision. I spent years convincing myself alcohol couldn't be the actual thing that was standing in my way. Nobody was trying to tell me to quit drinking or telling me that alcohol was a problem. Of course, if they were, I probably wouldn't have welcomed that feedback. But what I really needed was someone to give me permission to ask better questions. Because at the time, I wasn't asking whether alcohol added value to my life. I kept asking myself whether my drinking was bad enough. I was evaluating whether I qualified for quitting. And those are completely different questions. So today I want to share with you 6 truths I wish someone had told me years earlier. These truths will help you look at your relationship with alcohol with a different lens. And that's what life is really all about. When we are faced with problems or challenges, it's all about how we frame them in our minds. When we can see things from a different angle, then we can really start to pick up some momentum and make some shifts. So the first truth, you do not have to prove alcohol is ruining your life before you're allowed to question it. This is probably the biggest misconception women have. You believe that you need evidence that your drinking is a problem. You need a divorce, an arrest, losing a job, or a health scare. As if permission to change your relationship with alcohol has to be earned through some level of suffering. But here's what is actually true. You do not need a dramatic rock bottom. Sometimes your bottom is simply realizing that your life feels harder than it needs to. Maybe you're constantly tired. Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you are impatient with your children. Maybe you're surviving your weeks instead of actually enjoying them. Those things matter. Curiosity about an alcohol-free lifestyle is enough. You do not have to defend your decision to become healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. And you don't owe anyone proof that something is destroying your life in order for you to decide that alcohol no longer belongs in it. Ironically, it's often easier to recognize the need for change when there is a dramatic rock bottom. When everything falls apart, you have the clarity on the path forward. Even if you don't take that path, you understand what your life looks like if you do or you don't. You know the costs, you know what's at stake, you know the consequences if you continue your behavior. But when you are still doing all of the things, showing up, taking care of your responsibility, it's much harder to trust what you're feeling. And that's what keeps you stuck in the back and forth. You're thinking that maybe you are overreacting. Everyone feels like this. Maybe adulthood is just exhausting. You're just a mom. Maybe it's not that bad. If you wake up and you had one really bad night that you hadn't had in 6 months or 9 months, then you just say, I'll just take a break for a few days. I'll cut back. I won't drink vodka anymore. I'll stick with wine. You end up stuck in the space between knowing alcohol isn't working and then believing you have a good enough reason to change it. You don't have to put yourself through the ringer to know that something is no longer serving you. And that's truth number one. Truth number two, clarity is more valuable than certainty. I personally wasted a lot of time trying to become certain. I'd ask myself, am I really done? Can I just moderate? Maybe next month, maybe after that vacation, maybe after hockey season's over, maybe after the holidays. I was waiting for some level of certainty, as if certainty was just going to appear in one perfect moment. And we crave certainty because we believe that it protects us from regret. We tell ourselves if we are 100% certain about this decision, then it's not going to be the wrong one. But that's not how life works. Certainty doesn't come before action. You can't just wait for it. You have to trust what it is you feel and what you see. For me, it started to become more clear that on the days I didn't drink, everything in my life went more smoothly. I documented it in journal entry after journal entry. If you listen to my 1-year anniversary episode, you know that the times where I was drinking on a more regular basis, I wouldn't journal. I felt anxious. And you can see on all of the days that I didn't drink, I felt so much better, physically and mentally. I felt more connected to myself. I was exercising more. I was eating better, taking care of myself better. I had more energy, more momentum. And I started to see that pattern a little bit better over the course of time. I knew how alcohol made me feel, but I still wasn't certain about what my life would look like without alcohol. It took me making that decision before the needle could actually move forward. Then I began to understand what I was moving toward. But that came from experience. So it's unlikely that you are going to be certain before you quit drinking. You have to make the decision, you take the action, and the certainty you feel afterward is what allows you to stay firm in that decision because life starts opening up for you. Sometimes we think we need all the answers, but the decision itself is what gives us the answers. We have to actually live through those experiences to know I never needed alcohol for vacations. I don't need alcohol to relax. And now I'm 1,000% certain on that. But how could I be certain on it if I was still using alcohol to do those things? So the truth is to use your clarity as a compass. If you wait for certainty, you might be waiting forever. Truth number 3, your energy isn't missing. It's being spent recovering. And this one hits me. It hurts me, honestly, because for so many years, I thought that I had an energy problem. There were days I would lay in bed until late morning on the weekends. I hated Mondays. On any given day of the week, I would feel burnt out by 6, 7 p.m. I could do things for a period of time, like go to the gym. I would go really hard for several months at a time, but I could never be consistent over the span of years. I'd try new things, but I didn't have the energy to follow through. So, of course, I thought I could fix it through more coffee, more supplements, sleeping rituals. I was trying to manufacture energy while simultaneously draining it. Alcohol recovery isn't always just laying in bed hungover. Sometimes it's the brain fog, the low motivation, the short patience, the reduced focus, and the anxiety. When my son was younger, there were actually a handful of times I tried to coax him into reading the shorter bedtime story. I read to him for years and years, maybe until he was 12. I would give him the option to choose between books. And sometimes, if I saw he was leaning toward the longer one, I would try to get him to read the shorter one. And don't get me wrong, some of those books are long, but if I could go back and do that all over again, every single time I would choose the longest book because I will never get those moments back. He will never get those moments back. My exhaustion at that time led me to being less present with my son. I was choosing to read a shorter book out of fatigue because I didn't have it in me to go another 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. And it's not just the time, it's the patience, the curiosity, the playfulness. There wasn't anything wrong with me. I was working so much. I'm a single mom, but I was making all the excuses because I thought it was everything else. But the reality is when we have alcohol in our system, we are constantly borrowing energy from tomorrow and then wondering why the day feels so difficult, why you feel drained by 6 p.m., why you don't have the energy to bring your kids to practice. When you stop drinking, you stop feeling weighed down by those regular responsibilities because you gain all of that energy back. So the energy that you don't think you have, trust me, you do. It's there. And that's the truth. Truth number 4. You don't need more willpower. You need fewer negotiations. I spent years believing that I lacked discipline. I was exhausted from negotiating. Every Friday, should I drink? Shouldn't I drink? Maybe I'll just have one. Everyone else is drinking. Oh, they invited me over? I didn't really want to drink tonight, but I'm going to go anyway and just say hi. And then get there, and then I'm debating with myself internally some more. Should I drink? Whether it's a vacation, a birthday, a date night, a stressful week, every occasion was another debate on whether I would or wouldn't drink. Someone would ask me if I wanted a drink, and it was never just simple. Not in my mind anyway. And all of that debating consumes mental energy. When I would give in to certain moments where I didn't really want to drink, I wasn't in the mood, let's say, and I drank anyway, and then would wake up the next morning wondering, why did I do that? I don't feel good right now. But then I would start to internalize that as if I didn't have self-control or I didn't have willpower. What was wrong with me? But there was nothing wrong with me. And there is nothing wrong with you. After years of repeating those same patterns, your brain learns to expect alcohol, and that's just the way it is. Friday can be a cue, stress can be a cue, celebrations, vacations, certain people, places, or things. All of those can become cues. So your brain isn't making a thoughtful decision each time. It's simply following the pattern. Your brain wants the alcohol. And as a person, you are trying to fight that urge off mentally. And that's why it always feels like a negotiation. But willpower isn't going to win a negotiation with a pattern that your brain has been practicing for years, over 20 in my case. You have to create new patterns. You have to weaken those neural pathways, make those cues become insignificant. And in this way, you remove the negotiation altogether when you simply remove the alcohol. So it's not about coming to a point where you're going to say, I'll do it at this time. I'll do it for this reason. I'm going to have more power at that point to just say no. That's not going to come. You have to separate yourself from alcohol, and then you will not have those internal debates. Truth number 5. The hardest part isn't quitting alcohol itself. It's staying attached to the stories about alcohol that have been normalized in our society. The story that alcohol makes vacation more fun, that it makes you more social or playful, or that it helps you relax or makes you more confident. Those things are not true. They are just beliefs that you have accepted and reinforced for as long as you've drank. The real work isn't removing the alcohol itself. To be honest, it's not all that difficult. And I sometimes feel uncomfortable saying that because I think there are so many people who expect it to be hard or believe that addiction is a disease. And it's like you get attacked if you are vocal about your experience and it actually being pretty simple. And I say it respectfully because, again, I understand it. I've seen people struggle. Everybody's journey isn't the same. I've struggled in different ways before I actually came to that decision. So I'm not trying to be insensitive. My father drank my entire life, almost his whole life. He was physically addicted to alcohol. So for him to quit drinking and remain alcohol-free, it is a lot harder, I'm sure. But even he now has said he feels different this time. He hasn't drank in, 7, maybe almost 8 months. And he's had bouts of sobriety in the past. He's gone to AA in the past. But that's the whole thing, is that it's about the mindset shift. The work of simply not drinking, not going to the store, not buying alcohol. That's not like the real work, right? Quitting something, you just stop doing it. You're not drinking in this moment, probably while you're listening to it, you're not doing it. But it's like, if you were to quit your job because it became an unhealthy environment, you're not going to show up to the office every day. You're not going to socialize with those old coworkers every day. You're going to go to your new job. You're going to attract new groups of people. You're going to do new things to facilitate an income for yourself. It's the same with alcohol. When you quit, when you make that choice, you start doing other things to support that decision. So that part, the actual quitting, is not that hard. What can be hard is discovering who you are without all of those stories. Because we get so wrapped up in alcohol being part of our identity. And one of those identities for women is the identity as a drinker. You're the fun friend, the wine mom, the girl who loves margaritas, the vacation drinker, the social person. You're telling yourself that you need alcohol to experience all of those events and all of those emotions. But you don't need alcohol to be the fun, sociable friend who brings everyone together. Your personality is your personality. For me personally, I laugh just as much now. I laugh more, actually. I'm confident. I still travel. I still celebrate. I still connect with people. None of that belongs to alcohol. That is me. So it's all about putting a period on those narratives and discovering that if you give yourself the chance and shift your mindset, let go of who you think you are with alcohol, you can start becoming who you are without alcohol. That is truth number 5. Lastly, truth number 6. Your purpose gets louder when the noise gets quieter. And again, this can be a little difficult to explain if you haven't fully experienced it. I thought quitting alcohol would make life less meaningful. I thought that because I had attached alcohol to everything. I was living in the stories, I was living in the identity. But when I actually quit, my life became more meaningful. I started creating instead of consuming. I became more present for myself, my motherhood, my family and friends, and just for everything. I'm no longer distracted. I have more energy. Ideas came back. Ambition returned. I live with peace. I'm not feeling like I need to chase peace with a drink because peace exists within me. When I wake up in the morning, I wake up in a peaceful state. So even when adverse situations happen, I'm not trying to acquire peace outside of myself. This morning, actually, I was walking my dog quickly because I was in a rush, so I probably wasn't paying attention. I live in a community where so many of us have dogs, which is great. It's just those handful of people who don't pick up after the dogs, which is super inconsiderate. Well, I stepped in shit this morning. I got in my car without realizing it. And then I get in my car and I'm like, why does it smell like shit? As moms, obviously, that's a smell we can detect really easily. Then my son gets in the car and I ask him, does he smell the shit? Of course, he says no, because he's a boy. They don't smell anything. And I keep getting hit with the scent. And next thing you know, I'm driving, I look down, and there's shit on my sneaker. So, of course, I'm a little bit annoyed, but no big deal. I pull over the car, I grab a water bottle, I get napkins, whatever I can get, and try to clean it off my sneaker as best as I can. Was that annoying? Yes, of course it was. At the end of the day, is that going to ruin my entire day? No. Is it going to make me angry? Am I going to carry it with me? No, of course not. I'm not going to let that start my day and be the mood that I enter everything else with. Like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe I stepped in dog shit today, and then keep going over it over and over and over again. I'm sharing it with you now because it's the first thing that comes to mind that was a little bit annoying that I had to deal with. But when I used to drink, I would go over it. I would just keep repeating it and complain about how other people don't pick up after their pets. And I would catastrophize it. I would let it occupy far more space than it needed. Not because it was so meaningful, simply because I did not have the emotional capacity to process it. So I would stay stuck with it and want to have some level of control over it. I can pay attention, but sometimes things just happen. And that's a really minor situation. It's just the point of living in a state of peace. And when you are living in a state of peace, your purpose doesn't get overshadowed. But that's what happens when we drink. We're not living in peace. We are constantly fighting with ourselves. We are making big deals out of insignificant situations, and we're carrying it with us into every other experience. And when you're doing that on a daily basis, you can't think about anything outside of yourself. You're not really thinking about deeper meaning in your life or moving more purposefully. That's just not how your brain is operating. So when you quit drinking, you are able to live in peace. You're not constantly recovering from the day before or days before. You're building your life in the present moment today, which when you're building for today, you're also building for tomorrow. And that is truly the greatest gift of alcohol-free living. It's not just better mornings, it's a bigger vision for your life. So the truth is, your purpose, it comes to you because you attract it. And it's not just one thing. I've said this before. Purpose isn't just one thing that we have to drive ourselves crazy looking for, but you attract it, you're living it, you're embodying it, and you just start to live in a more meaningful way. So those are the 6 truths that I wish I had really understood before I quit drinking. And of course, I am so thankful for my experience and going through the years that I did, in fact, drink alcohol. I have had experiences where I drank very little and experiences where I drank multiple times per week. I've had breaks, 30 days, 60 days, 6 months, even years that I've gone in my life without drinking. Alcohol didn't always hold as much space that it did as the last few years before I quit. So I've been on all ends of the spectrum here. And when I share my experiences, I hope that you can understand, because when you do something for 20 years, it can sound like a bit of a contradiction in some ways. But it's not that. It's just that we go through cycles. We have different points in time in which we can reflect back on and know why we did or didn't do things a certain way. Different points in our life where things held more space than they did at other points. So I'm thankful for the entire journey, because now I have the perspective of what it was like and what it's now like to live as a non-drinker, which I would not trade for anything in the world. But I share these truths with you because where I'm at now, I do still wish I would have come here a lot earlier, when my son was younger, when I had the feeling that I was seeing patterns but not really acting on them. Like I wish that I knew how great an alcohol-free lifestyle actually was. And that's why I'm sharing this message with you. It's not for you to overhaul your life or to determine that something is an issue for you if you don't think it is. It's for people who have an inner knowing that they do want more. They do feel that inner sense of disconnect. Something is off. You know that when you wake up in the morning, you wish you could feel better. You wish you didn't drink the night before. So if you're listening today and you've been questioning the value or lack of value of alcohol, you don't have to make a forever decision. You don't have to declare that you're never going to drink again, or call yourself sober, or announce it to the world that you plan to quit drinking. You just have to start asking better questions, because real questions produce real truths. Does the life you're living reflect the life you actually want? Does alcohol support the woman that you are becoming or the woman that you are trying to leave behind? You have to stop seeking external permission and start trusting yourself. So getting in touch with those truths, being curious about an alcohol-free lifestyle, don't ignore that. All of that counts. So thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. You can also follow the Pink Cloud Frequency on Instagram, where I share a lot about my experience and just living with more clarity, energy, and purpose. I will talk to you all next Wednesday.